We're going to talk for a couple minutes specifically about two really critical elements of this. But did you guys know that today is like a massive internet holiday? How many folks out there have heard of the term Mobilegeddon? A couple. So about 2 months ago, Google did what Google rarely does. Google is kind of like, if you remember back in the 90s when Alan Greenspan famously uttered the term irrational exuberance and the stock market crashed, or when the Vatican is trying to let us know where they are in deciding on a new pope and they put up like black smoke or like it's white smoke. Google's kind of that way. They play it a little close to the vest. They don't tell us a whole lot about what they're doing. About 2 months ago, they announced that on April 21st of 2015, today, that they would start to use as a major signal, one of the things that they look at to determine which websites to show, they would use whether or not a website is optimized to work on a phone. It became coined Mobilegeddon because people realized very quickly that as many as 80% of the business websites in the world, including more than 40% of the biggest brands out there, were about to get, and as of this morning, are being severely punished by Google for not being optimized for a phone. The way they announce it, it's pretty cryptic. It looks like this. This has been on their Google Webmaster Central blog, which I'm sure all of you read daily, just like I do. This has been up there since late February. The internet geek world that I live in has been abuzz over this for months. You may or may not even notice. Essentially what they're saying, I use that word signal, starting April 21st, we will be expanding our use of mobile friendliness as a ranking signal. What they've told us, they won't tell us exactly how much, but they've said it's a really big deal. This is about the 5th time they've ever done this, come out with a proactive statement telling us that they're going to do it. They even gave us a test. So you can take your URL and put it into the little box and figure out if Google's going to punish you or not. How many of you have taken that test? I strongly suggest that the first thing you do when you get back to work today, if you have a website, is put your URL into that box. Because if your website does not pass Google's friendliness test, you are getting severely punished. And your likelihood of showing up when people search for you is dramatically lower than it was yesterday. And it's only going to get worse. So if there's a couple of takeaways, this would probably be the second one. The other point that I touched on earlier, in addition to mobile, the other really critical takeaway is what I will call your reputation. I touched on this a little bit before, but I'll reiterate it. The most important content about your business online today is not content that you create. And I'll give you an example. Again, I like to tell stories. That same trip that I was in Spokane, I was sitting down with a very, very successful local business. Not unlike I just did for you, I showed him his Google Plus page. Much like most of you, he had no idea it was there, had no idea it was important, saw no reason to care. He certainly didn't know that one of the things that I love about Google Plus is that in the top left, in big, bold, red font, it shows you exactly how many people have seen your Google Plus page. Another thing that's fun about it is Google Plus lets people write ratings and reviews about your business on your Google Plus page. This business owner had 1 review on his website. This conversation was in November-ish of last year. The review was 3 years old. It had been written in 2011. It was scathingly bad. I cannot, or at least will not, use the language that was in that review in a forum like this, but it was something to the effect of your product is awful, your service is awful, your facility is awful, your people are awful. If I had more time, and he actually said this part, if I had more time, I would write to the Better Business Bureau in hopes that no one ever has to have the horrible experience of working with you that I did. Can you guess, just bold red font on his Google Plus page, told us both how many people had seen that review? Anybody want to guess how many people in 3 years read that review about a local business? 77,000 people had read that review. And I hear over and over again from people like you who have real businesses in the real world say something like, yeah, James, I hear you, I get it, but I just don't know about the return on investment or the return on my time. to worry about all the places online that people can say stuff about my business and figure out what to do about it. You think it might have been worth this business owner a little bit of his time or even a little bit of his money to, I don't know, generate 2 or 3 or 4 positive reviews? Then maybe push that bad one down below the fold? Or maybe round out people's perception of his business? I do. Every day on hundreds of websites out there, from these directories to social media sites to ratings and review sites, people are saying things about your business right now. You have tools available to you to monitor that, to respond to them, even to control it, to generate more positive reviews. Why do people write positive reviews about businesses online? Because you ask them to. That's the only reason. And there are lots of ways that you can make it easier to ask them to. There are lots of ways that you can even, fancy word, disintermediate or get in between someone who's going to write a negative review and turn that negative review into, I don't know, an email in the inbox of your store manager instead of being on Yelp. But understanding that what people see about your business when they first see it is most likely not going to be something you created, and managing your digital reputation is perhaps the second or third most important takeaway from today, after making sure that your website works on a phone. Social media is not that dissimilar. When people encounter you on sites like Facebook, what do they see? The white arrow on the same eye doctor whose Google Plus page I showed you before, that arrow does not mean he's in the witness protection program. That arrow means that piece of content is a video. When people go onto sites like Facebook, they do not go there to read words. I have a new store, we have a grand opening, 50% off. They don't care. People go on sites like Facebook to look at pictures, usually of your food, and to watch videos, usually of your cats. When the good doctor here wanted to thank people for liking his Facebook page, he didn't write, "Thank you for visiting my new Facebook page." He posted it in a video. Where do you think that video lived? Who hosted it maybe? YouTube. Who owns YouTube? Google. What's that first rule of being successful online? Google loves and trusts Google. If you can put content about your business into a format, video, that Google loves, distribute it, I'll use that word, onto a site where Americans spend 2.5 hours a day, Facebook, they will watch it. If he had just written, "Thank you for liking my new Facebook page," no one would have paid any attention to it.